Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. How are you all today? The sun is once again up. So today is the 24th. Today's topic is on gratitude. On gratitude. So the topic itself, two persons to be grateful to. Yeah. Who was there when we were born, cared for us when we were sick, showed us the way, the world, be our port in the stormy sea, a shelter in the storm. Yeah. Of course, it should be our father and mother. It should be our father and mother. So today we will go through once more one of the sutta that we come back to again and again. I think it's something that is very meaningful for us to revisit. Let me just get it up. This is correct. Okay, can. So this is the Katanyu Suttas. The Katanyu Sutta. So in this sutta there are actually two parts to it. The first part is on integrity. Yeah. So the Buddha in this sutta, this sutta is from the Anguttara Nikaya. So the denotation AN stands for Anguttara Nikaya. I don't have to rewrite that. And it's under Book 2. And Sutta 31 and 32. So Sutta 31 is actually the part on integrity. The part on integrity. Let me just adjust the pen, be a bit thicker. Yeah. So in this sutta, the Buddha highlights that there are different kind of people. That there's one kind of people that has no integrity, and then there's those with integrity. So those with no integrity are those who are ungrateful and unthankful. Yeah. So this ingratitude, this lack of thankfulness, is advocated by rude people. It is entirely on the level of people of no integrity. So this is the first set. And the second set is a person of integrity is grateful and thankful. This gratitude, this thankfulness is advocated by civil people. It is entirely on the level of people with integrity. Yeah. So then on this basis, then the Buddha in another sutta, which is back to back with this, highlights that there are two people who are not easy to repay. So who are these two? Yeah, of course it is our mother and father. Why is it to draw a straight line with this? Let me try to draw a straight line here. Okay. Sing it. And the trouble with this is a tablet, so it's a stylus tablet. So I'm looking at the screen and then my hand is on the table. So it's hard to gauge how how straight the line would be. Takes a bit more practice than this. Yeah, this is very straight. Or if I were to ink to shape, maybe this might be better. Nope. Okay, never mind. You know what I'm saying. Yeah, so the Buddha goes on to describe that even if you were to carry your mother on one shoulder and your father on the other shoulder for 100 years, yeah, without going further, just imagine carrying them for 100 years, not to mention 100 years. Even if we carry them for 1 year, even for 1 month, even carrying them for one day, I think we'll be struggling. But our father and mother, they carry us, yeah, when we are younger. Of course, we can say that, oh, that's when we are younger and we are a baby, right? But the Buddha goes on to say that now, even if you were to carry them for 100 years and were to look after them by anointing, massaging, bathing, rubbing their limbs, yeah, and they were to defecate and urinate there, right there on your shoulders, you will not in that way pay or repay your parents. So this is the first section here. So even if you take care of your parents for 100 years in this way, you still haven't repaid their parents. So what else can you do? If you were to establish your mother and father in absolute sovereignty over this great earth, abounding in the 7 treasures, you will not in that way pay or repay your parents. Yeah. So that's to say, if you somehow manage to make your parents the ruler, yeah, absolute sovereignty, that means they are the ruler of this whole earth. At the first place, we are not even the ruler of the whole earth. But imagine if you can do that, yeah, and so that they can have absolute power over everything on the whole earth. So basically, you can give whatever you can give them in a worldly way, you give them, okay, in other words. But yet, you still cannot pay or repay your parents. Yeah. So this is usually the focus. This is usually the focus when we look at this sutta, yeah, on the greatness of our parents. But there's also this other part, which is the question of why. What about them that makes them so worthy? What about them that makes them so precious? Yeah, that we should be so grateful to them. So the Buddha poses this question: why is that? Why is that? So the reason is, mother and father, yeah, do much for their children. They care for them, they nourish them, they introduce them to the world. In other words, the last part should be on educating them. Of course, in today's context, part of that job is done by the school, yeah, and then we have childcare, we have preschool, we have kindergarten, and all the different schools that we send our children to. So this is the reason the Buddha gave. So first, they do much for their children, and these are some examples of what they do for children. Just the first two, so caring and nourishing them, yeah. So this caring is, you can look at caring as an emotional love, yeah, and then nourishing can be seen as the material love, and then introduce them to this world. That is the education part, yeah, covering all different aspects. So don't look at these 3 parts as just 3 things. This basically cover everything you can think of that parents would do for us. Yeah, just the first one, caring for us, that covers a lot of things. The amount that they give thought for our well-being, yeah, the consideration they give for us. So this is the second part, yeah, the rationale, the reasoning, and this part there's actually two implications, yeah. One is that because of their kindness, then it's a very natural thing that because they are so kind to us, so we should be grateful to them. But there's also the implication, yeah, that on the reverse, then the onus is on parents to be like that, yeah. The mother and father should be doing much for their children. They should be caring for them, nourishing for them, and introducing them to this world, or educating them, in other words. Many times we think about the gratitude part in the one direction. Yeah. So if you're the children, then we only think about how to be grateful to our parents. But what about when you have already started a family and you are the parent? Maybe you are married but not having kids yet, yeah. Or maybe you have gotten married and you already have kids and they are still young. Or maybe your kids have already grown up in their teens. Or maybe your kids are already adults. And perhaps your kids are already, settled down in their own family. And perhaps your kids even have children. Your grandparent, you are a grandparent already. In which case then, when we look at this sutta, whether towards our parents, we shouldn't look at this just as a reminder for gratitude towards our parents as well. Yeah, we should also then look at it and say, how have we as parents made ourselves worthy for others, yeah, for our children and even grandchildren to have gratitude towards us? Have we done much for them? Have we cared for them? Have we nourished them? Have we educated them, introduced them to this world? Yeah. So this second part, there's these two directions. Yeah. When we look at the first part, I think this is talking about the extreme case. Yeah. So to bring it to the furthest, that even if you do all that, you cannot repay them. Then we go to, so that's the first part here, and then the second part. And now we go to the last part of this sutta. But anyone who arouses his unbelieving mother and father, settles and establishes them in conviction, rouses his unvirtuous mother and father, settles in and establishes them in virtue, rouses his stingy mother and father, establishes and settles and establishes them in generosity, rouses his foolish mother and father, settles and establishes them in discernment. To this extent, one pays and repays one's mother and father. So this is the last part. Yeah, so there's these four aspects. Yeah. So this is the first part. Number 1, conviction. Number 2, virtue. Number 3, generosity. Number 4, discernment. Yeah. And if we look at these 4, this is what this is part 3, and in Chinese we use these terms 信、戒、施、慧。信、戒、施、慧。So we ourselves may be Buddhists, but our parents, they may not be Buddhists. they may not have faith in the teachings. Yeah, they may not have faith in the teachings of truth, and then we can help them to arouse in them, yeah, this faith, this conviction. Here, different texts, sometimes they use different translation. Here, the word that is used is conviction. Faith in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha, and then faith in the practices, which is part of the Dharma. Yeah. So, how to help them to have faith? We must first have faith ourselves. Yeah, and our faith should translate to ways that that is positive for them, that is wholesome for them. So sometimes some students ask me, like, they tell me that they would like to introduce the teaching to their parents, but their parents are not too amiable to it. Sometimes they tell me, oh, I try to get my parents to go to a temple with me, yeah, or I try to share the Dharma with them, but they are not very open to the teachings. Yeah. So then I ask my students whether they are on talking terms. And sure enough, in some cases they are not on talking terms. In other cases, then I ask them whether they spend time chatting with their parents. And again, they say, no, I don't chit-chat with them. Some even say that they don't really have much to talk to their parents about. So then, I'm like, put yourself in your parents' shoes. If your child don't even talk to you, and then out of the blue just come and tell you, oh, Buddhism is good, Dharma is good, come and learn Buddhism. Why would you be open to that? Yeah, and if we ourselves in the same situation wouldn't be open to it, then why would our parents be? Yeah. That's not to say that we talk to them simply out of the intention to try to get them to learn Buddhism or to have faith in Buddhism. But then the whole teaching on the teaching of the Buddha, we should not be we should not be ignoring our parents, isn't it? Yeah. Now, if you look at the teachings, right, we often talk about the 戒定慧. So when we learn the teachings, then we talk about sila, we talk about samadhi, we talk about wisdom, panya, or prajna. So then we talk about the Noble Eightfold Path. So these are the precepts. Oh, sorry. No wonder how come this become a straight line. Precepts, we talk about development of tranquility. We talk about development of wisdom. Usually this is translated as concentration, but sometimes this word can be misleading. So when we look at the teachings and we learn Dharma, then we think, okay, this is all we need to do. Yeah. Then we learn about the Noble Eightfold Path, 八正道. Yeah. The Eightfold Path. Yeah. Also known as the Right Eightfold Path, or the Noble Eightfold Path. I would prefer the Enlightened Eightfold Path. So if you look at all that, it doesn't talk about spending time with your parents, talking to them. Yeah, isn't it? But if you look at various suttas, the Buddha talk about caring for people. Yeah, we learn about practicing of right speech. Yeah, caring speech, speaking at the right time. Yeah. So if we learn so much, if you learn a lot of Dhamma, and we care enough about our parents, we should not first thing jump in and try to, you know, preach the Dharma to them. Yeah, that shouldn't be the first thing. The first thing maybe we should do is get to know them as well. Yeah, to get to know them better. One exercise that I often do with students in the Dharma school is to ask them to list down things about their parents. Like, what is the favorite food of your parents? Yeah. What is the favorite activity of your parents? What is the favorite color of your parents? Yeah. And quite often, yeah, myself guilty as well in the past, I realized that as I was growing up, we seldom stop and think about this. You know, we get to know new friends, we get to know new activities, new interests. It's all about the outside world. Yeah, we forget to look back in our family to the two-person who is dearest to us and ask ourselves, what do we know about them actually? You know, especially for young young students out there. When I say students, I don't mean like you're still in school, but those who are like, let's say in your 20s or 30s, and it may apply to you even if you're in your 50s or 60s. Like, especially if you're in your, let's say, late teens or 20s, and you start to take interest in friends, yeah, and perhaps on an amorous level, you will find that you are so curious about the other person. You know, you want to know everything about that person, and you want to remember them, yeah, and you want to perhaps even try to find common interests. Even if you are not interested, you try to be interested. Yeah, that's what we do for people that we are interested in, isn't it? Yeah, that's why we say we are interested in that person. So the question I often ask people is, so then what about our parents? Do we take interest in them? Now some may say, no lah, my parents are very boring, not interesting. Well, nobody is interesting by themselves, you know. Yeah. The question is not so much whether our parents or someone is interesting. The question is, do they deserve our interest? And I think there can only be one answer. Yeah. If there's anybody in this world that deserves our interest, it should be our parents. Yeah. Especially those who are parents now with children. I see a lot of young couples posting like photos, tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of photos and videos, more videos, Instagram moments, yeah, Facebook moments of their children sleeping, walking, talking, eating, every single thing, you know. Yeah. I think it's wonderful. I think it's a very beautiful expression of parent love, of one's love for their children. But I often like to throw in the spana. Sometimes I see on Facebook students post, you know, like how how strongly they care for their children and so on. And then I like to just post a comment and say, yeah, and likewise our parents. Yeah, I don't mean to say that these individuals, that people who love their children so much don't love their parents. Yeah, but I think sometimes if out of 100 posts, 100 photos we take 100 photos or 90 photos of our children, and maybe 5 of our parents, that number does say something, isn't it? Yeah. Um, not to question the extent of our love for our parents, but if all we say is, yeah, I do love them, but we don't express it, just as we want to express our love for our children, shouldn't we express our love for our parents? Perhaps we should. Now, of course, there will be those who have parents who don't appreciate it. Yeah, especially the older parents. Sometimes they can be very unappreciative. You buy things for them, then they criticize non-stop. They say, why you waste money, and then you say you want to take photo with them, and they say, don't take photo lah. Yeah. Then they have 101 excuses and reasons why you shouldn't take photo with them. Yeah. They'll say, today is not a good day for taking photo. Yeah. They'll say strange things like this. Yeah. Or if, let's say, you and your wife or husband want to take photo with them, yeah, and then they say, 3% cannot take photo. Things like that. Yeah. But trust me, regardless of whatever they say, deep down inside, they do appreciate it. Yeah. And we shouldn't just say, because they said once or twice that they don't want to take photos, then we don't ever take photo with them. Yeah. Take photos with them. Yeah. Now, I'm not suggesting that out of 100 photos, we should take 90 photos of our parents and then only 10 photos of our kids. Yeah. I don't think there's any magic number. And I'm not saying that 90 is necessarily wrong, but I wonder how much that means in terms of the level that we express our love for our parents. Yeah. So if you just look at this last part, is to help them to arouse faith in the triple gem, so that they can be open to practice the precepts and develop virtue. Yeah. And the heart may be softened to be open, to be generous, and so that then the mind is ready for the cultivation, the development of wisdom. But that would not be possible if we don't express our care and love for them. Yeah. Our parents are, by any chance, probably not enlightened, and unenlightened beings are not rational. And unenlightened beings, if they are rational, they would have conviction, virtue, generosity, and discernment already. Precisely because our parents and and ourselves, we are not enlightened. So what are the features of unenlightened beings? Unenlightened beings, we decide mostly based on how we feel. We sometimes say, there are people who are rational, and there are people who function more on their emotions. The truth is, as long as we are not enlightened, for the most part, our decisions are quite based on emotions. I'm not suggesting that there are no, we never make decisions based on rationality. Yeah. But especially when it comes to such decisions, yeah. Many times, whether we listen to a person, we take heed of their advice or their suggestion, has more to do with how we feel towards that person than the advice itself. That's why the Buddha has to teach us 依法不依人, to rely on the principle, the teachings, and not simply on the person. Yeah. But that's precisely because being unenlightened, we tend to rely on the person. In what sense rely on the person? We rely on how we feel towards that person. Yeah. And so if we truly care for our parents, then we have to ask ourselves, are we ready to befriend them? Are we ready to take interest in them? If we say that on one hand, I care for them, I want the best for them, but yet we don't take interest in them, then these two are opposing. Yeah. Yeah. Then we're not true in our first statement. Yeah. Not true to the truest sense. Now, and if I may extend this, because this 4 actually applies to many other scenarios. Yeah, for parents, then perhaps it's also the duty of parents to arouse in our children who are unbelieving to settle and establish them in conviction. To rouse unvirtuous children, settle and establish them in virtue. To rouse stingy children, settle and establish them in generosity. To rouse foolish children, settle and establish them in discernment. Yeah. And if parents do that, then I think that is the best way to care for them, to nourish them and introduce them to this world. Yeah. Because if you establish anyone in this 4, they are set for life and in future. They would have planted the basis for future development and enlightenment. No? Yes. And I think that would be the one thing we can do for our parents. Yeah. Starting with taking interest in them, caring for them, talking to them, yeah, spending time with them. Yeah, spending time with them. Don't wait until they have passed away, then you think, oh, I must do this ceremony or do that ceremony, I must burn 1 house, 2 house, 3 house. When they are alive, let them stay in your house. Don't wait until they have passed away, then you think of burning for them a paper car. When they're alive, wherever they want to go, accompany them. Yeah, accompany them. Yeah, I think it's a very empowering thing to have house, to have what do you call that? To have mates. Yeah. But don't let your mate replace you in taking care of your parents. Yeah. It's one thing for the maid to help us. Yeah. Like I see my sister, without the maid, she would have really struggled with my father. Yeah. So having the maid was very helpful, and that's why the whole family, we are very grateful to that maid. But I also see other cases, yeah, where the maid basically replace parenting, replace the role of the children. I think that's very sad. Okay, so let me take a look. That's all I have for today. Let me see whether there's any questions that is being posted. Let's see. Saikyang says, my mom does not like to take photo as she worry I post on social media. Yes. So Saikyang says, so parents can have very interesting nuances. Yeah. So well, my mom, I remember, I think people of the older generation, they are quite particular about taking photos. Yeah. Yeah, but I think over time, we can help them. We can help them to overcome that. Of course, there will be some students who, after watching this, they may have this thought. Maybe they don't write down, but they may have this thought. But 师父, I thought you're supposed to teach us to have less attachment for them. Wouldn't taking photos bring about attachments? That's true. That's true. Yeah, I help you all ask questions. That's true. Yeah. But isn't taking photos of your children also attachment? So this is the thing, you see. Yeah. I'm not saying all students are the same. Yeah. But if someone take photos of the children, and then when we ask them to take photos of their parents, and then they bring in Dharma, then they should ask themselves, then what about taking photos of your children? How about taking photos of the food and ourselves and nice sceneries? Yeah, taking all those photos, isn't that attachment? I remember once, I think there was this book, I think Ajahn Chah's biography, not autobiography. So there was this incident that was being mentioned, that there was one day Ajahn Chah was invited to a meal, and then I think the meal was offered by a Westerner. So then that lay Westerner asked Ajahn Chah, "How is the food?" And then Ajahn Chah actually replied, "Quite good," something like that, quite delicious. So the students were quite surprised. Yeah, some of them were quite surprised because Ajahn Chah was like reputed to like never really comment on food. Like any kind of food offered, he also take it. He don't really like hanker for a certain kind of food. Oh, this is very delicious. That one is not too nice. Yeah. So I think in the book it was then said that, you know, I think perhaps someone actually asked him, yeah, and he explained. I think if I don't recall wrongly, and he kind of explained that, well, because while he don't have much of a he don't have that kind of strong craving, but out of compassion to that lay person, he commented on the food nonetheless. Yeah, I like to think he didn't lie. Yeah. So yeah. So when it comes to this, yeah, filial piety towards our parents, don't bring in the ultimate reality and say things like, oh, we should not be attached. Yeah, because the thing is, unless you are ready to get ordained and then, you know, renounce every of your possessions and then go and do your practice. Yeah. Otherwise, then it's quite funny sometimes. I see Buddhists using the Dharma at the most inopportune time. Yeah. When it comes to caring for people, then they bring in the Dharma. When it comes to their craving, no, Dharma is nowhere to be found. Okay. So anyway, yeah. So that's some food for thought. Yeah. I think you all can think about what you think about this sutta. Of course, this is not the sutta itself is by the Buddha. So you can think about how can you actually apply this? How can you actually help your parents in these 4 areas? And likewise, for those who are parents, maybe you can also think about how can you help your children, yeah, in these 4 areas. How about your spouse? Yeah. In other texts, it talk about spouse also, these 4 qualities. Yeah. How about your friends? Do you help your friends to develop in these 4 areas? Oh. Okay, so let's put our palms together and we'll do dedication. Yen 消三障诸烦恼，愿得智慧真明了， 普愿罪障悉消除，世世常行菩萨道。阿弥陀佛。来起立。